How big are the characters in Battle for Dream Island? This has been a question that has plagued the object show community for centuries. Are they the size of regular objects? Microscopic? The size of humans? Multiple light years in diameter? Even the creators of the show are unsure, but today we will definitively, absolutely, once and for all, come up with a bunch of contradictory numbers since this is a children's cartoon that doesn't heed much to the laws of physics. So, scholars across the globe have wrongly assumed that BFDI never gives us any measurements to work with, but this is false. There are actually over 12 different instances that I was able to catch in one watch through, where a human distance measurement that we can use was explicitly shown or said aloud. They are
square mile,
20 or so yards,
10 foot deep,
2,761 miles,
500 miles wide,
2,760 miles,
5 inches thick,
a half mile to go,
400,000 kilometers,
1,000,000 miles an hour,
2,763 miles an hour,
and of course,
2,763 miles
away.
we will be able to use 9 of these. We never get a good reference for the characters relative to Dream Island, so we can't use that one, and 2,763 miles an hour is a speed unit. We can't tell how long X has been traveling, and even if we did, it wouldn't be that helpful. 1,000,000 miles an hour is obviously an exaggeration, and I feel like the moon measurement is helpful, but I couldn't really think of anything. However, we can still use combinations of the rest to calculate sizes in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, it is 7 different ways, one of which doesn't even rely on distance measurements. So let's just When the squishy cherries need to break the finish line ribbon in BFDI 1B, Penn says that it is only
20 or so yards away,
and we can use this to make a rough approximation about the size of the characters. Emphasis on the rough. All calculations taken here should be taken with a shaker full of salt, 3 bottles of soy sauce, and a gallon of seawater. So we don't see the characters making the full 20 yards' journey, but we can try and calculate the distance they traveled relative to their own body lengths using their speed and the time it took them. From the moment they all start to leave to the moment they reach the shore, a whole 47.5 seconds elapses. Pin is sideways here, so we'll use her as a ruler since we can actually see her full body length. In this shot, it takes 2.5 seconds for Pin to travel 1.07 times her body length, so she is traveling at 0.44 pins a second. Multiplying that by 47.5 seconds, we get that the total distance traveled is 20.8 total pins. That makes Pin 0.96 yards tall or 0.88 meters tall. To get the heights of all the other characters, I'm going to be using this shot from BFB1 where we see all 64 characters on screen at once. Yeah, some of them are further away from the camera, which should make them smaller, but they clearly haven't been resized, and you can gut check that really quick. Pen, pencil, and match are all roughly the same height, Fiery Jr. is the shortest, etc. If anyone has a better image to use as a height chart, you can recommend it in the comments, but for now this is all we'll be using
because of budget cuts.
Furthermore, whenever I talk about the height of a character, I mean the height of their object, not including the limbs. Exceptions to this include David and Dora, but not Robot Flower. As well, I will not include Puffball since she can change sizes, or Black Hole since I have many problems with pretending he obeys physical, mathematical, or logical laws. So anyways, if Pin is 0.88 meters tall, that makes everyone else. Now that wasn't very precise, so let's try and calculate heights a different way as well. According to Announcy in BFDI 14, this vat of hydrochloric acid is
10 foot deep,
and we can easily use this to calculate heights since we see a bunch of characters directly next to it. Blocky is a cube, which makes for a nice ruler, so we'll use him. Using pixel measurements, Blocky's height is 0.7 times the height of the vat, and an easy multiplication by 10 makes Blocky a towering 7 feet or 2.15 meters tall. That means everyone else is... The next time we get a measurement is visually in BFDI 19, where if you look at the subtle hints in this frame, you can deduce that this gray bar is in fact 1 kilometer in length. Leafy and Icy are far too small in this frame to actually get meaningful measurements, but not all is lost. Every BFDI episode's FLA files are in an easily accessed Google Drive, and we can use that to measure Leafy and Ice Cube sizes. Since they're too small to be compared to the bar, we'll first compare them to a smaller thing, say this beige thing here. Using pixel measurements, the beige thing measures at 83.76 Leafys tall. If we then zoom out and compare the beige thing to this gay cube, it measures in at being 0.84 beige things tall. Now we have something large enough to use as a unit for this kilometer bar, although it's a bit unclear if the kilometer includes this vertical section or not. To be safe, we'll calculate it both ways. With the vertical part, the bar is 6.42 rainbow things long, and without it, it's 6.09. Now we can multiply our previous numbers together to get that the kilometer bar is 449.4 or 426.81 Leafy's long. Then if we divide 1,000 by those numbers, that gives Leafy a height of 2.23 or 2.28 meters tall. To get the other contestants' heights, I'll take an average of those numbers to get... Next, we'll use a combination of many different measurements at once, specifically about the journey to Yo-Yo Land. There is a very nice shot in BFDI A2 where we see Puffball continuously fly there from the evil forest. Side note, all the maps we see to Yo-Yo Land are utter nonsense given what we see. FreeSmart exits the Goiki Canal in BFDI A5E directly onto Yo-Yo soil, but from what we see on the map, Yo-Yo Land is not only miles away from the Goiki Canal, but also completely landlocked. We know that Puffball's total journey is 2,763 miles, but we only see Puffball after she's already partway through it. However, we can easily figure out where she starts within a very small margin of error thanks to Wobunch. In BFDI A5C, before they reach the Evil Canyon, Wobunch has 2,761 miles until Yo-Yo Land, and in BFDI A5E, that has updated to
2,760 miles?
That means the start of the desert is somewhere in between, which is good since we see Puffball entering the desert. With numbers this big, 1 mile doesn't really make a difference, so let's just say the start of the desert is 2,760 miles away. We can use the FLA to easily piece together the land that Puffball flies over, but we run into a problem, and that's that we have no reference for how fast Puffball is moving over the Goiki Canal. The water isn't moving, and the objects that are on different planes and will move at different speeds. Luckily though, Bubble comes to the rescue. She tells us in BFDI A5D that the Goiki Canal is
It's over 500 miles wide!
so let's stay on the higher end of things and say that it's 600 miles. That means we can subtract those miles from Puffball's journey and ignore the water altogether. That means from the start of the desert she travels 2,160 miles. That's very interesting because the desert is absolutely tiny. It is only 86.58 times her width, meaning Puffball is almost 25 miles wide or 40,148.19 meters long. Puffball's not a great ruler since she can change size, so if we convert that relative to Needy's height, she is 28,709.32 meters tall, making everyone else... In case you disagree that I can just ignore the water section altogether, I did originally calculate Puffball's speed in the desert and extrapolate it across the water, and Needy was still almost 2,000 meters tall, so either way it's ridiculously tall. Moving back to some more reasonable results, the next time we see a distance measurement is in IDFB1, where we helpfully get that the TLC and LOL's walls combined are 10 inches, and we even get a helpful diagram to go along with it. We don't see any full contestants, but we can calculate the length of Robot Flower's bottom pedal and then use a separate image of her to calculate her full height. Her pedal is 1.133 times the size of the walls, meaning it is 11.33 inches long. Using a separate image of her, her total height is 2.17 times the length of her bottom pedal, making her 24.54 inches or 0.62 meters tall. Finally, the last calculation, using distance measurements, there's still one after this, is in BFB1. When Pencil is jumping to get the basket, she exclaims that she has
Half a mile to go.
Since it is canonical that Pencil is physically unable to tell a lie, we know that this is not just an estimate, so we can easily use pixel measurements to calculate her height. Pencil bounces up and down in this scene, so it's not clear from which height the half a mile is starting from, so I'll just calculate it both ways. The length of the half mile is either 7.19 or 7.06 times bigger than Pencil's height, and if I put a 0.5 on top of those, that gives Pencil a height of around 0.07 miles for both. If we convert that to meters, Pencil is 111.93 or 114.05 meters tall, meaning she could probably get to her clubhouse by taking a step.
That's not actually true, the Eiffel Tower is 300 meters tall, but I needed a joke in this section. Anyways, the other characters are... Okay, now this is the last one, and it happens all the way back in BFDI 3. Pencil is an extremely skilled doodleist and is able to sketch lines less than an atom thick, and luckily for us, she labels a few things whose lengths are easy to find. Every 3 pencils down, we get a new landmark in the form of a hair, a red blood cell, a virus, and an atom. The sizes of all these things can vary greatly, so I really only think the red blood cells will be trustworthy, but nonetheless I will calculate a range of possible values so that it's clear that they can fluctuate. Also, this involves exponentiation, so any small errors I made will be amplified, but I didn't make any of course, so that's redundant. Each pencil fits into the last one 3.03 times, so if we raise that to the number of pencils down the object is, and multiply it by how many times bigger the doodle is than the object, we'll get the number of times the object fits into the largest pencil. The width of the hair is 13.41 times smaller than pencil, so multiplying that by 3.03 to the 6th, we get that there are over 10,000 hairs for every 1 pencil doodle. The blood cell is only 2.32 times smaller than pencil, so using the same process but to the 9th, we get 50,000 of them for every pencil doodle. The virus is 4.11 times smaller, switch that to a 12 and that equals over 2 million, and lastly the atom, which is 36.65 times smaller, gives us over 600 million. Now we can just Google the real life dimensions of all these objects to get the real length of the biggest pencil doodle. The width of a human hair is 17 to 181 micrometers, which gives us a length for the pencil doodle of 0.18 to 1.88 meters. Blood is 6.2 to 8.2 micrometers, making the doodle 0.31 to 0.42 meters. Viruses are 20 to 1000 nanometers, so the doodle is 0.05 to 2.47 meters, a huge range. And atoms are 0.1 to 0.5 nanometers in diameter, so the doodle is 0.06 to 0.31 meters, which makes me realize that viruses could be like 40 atoms long. That's probably not really how it works, but that is tiny. Anyways, we know the size of pencil's doodle, but we still need to calculate the size of, pencil. You probably didn't think it was possible, but I'm going to go out even further on a limb and assume many things about the paper she is using. If we look at the dimensions of the paper in this scene, it's pretty much a standard letter size paper, so I'm just going to assume it is. We're past the exponentiation, so small errors won't really matter anymore. Anyways, we can see letters on her page, and even more if we look at the FLA. This is Times New Roman, and I'll also assume that it's 12-point font, so the line "Do Not Doodle" on this should be 7.85 times smaller than the length of the paper. The pencil doodle is 5.73 times bigger than the text, so if we divide those two numbers, we get 1.37 pencil doodles per paper. Using a different shot, there are 2.84 papers per pencil, so if we multiply those numbers together, we get that the conversion factor from pencil doodles to real pencils is 3.87. Using the hair numbers, pencil is 0.69, nice, to 7.30 meters tall. Using the blood numbers, she is 1.21 to 1.60 meters. Using the virus numbers, she is 0.19 to 9.57 meters. And using the atom numbers, she is 0.24 to 1.19 meters. Because of the blood and atom numbers, these heights aren't all compatible with each other, but they're all surprisingly in a believable range. It helps that some of the ranges are 2 orders of magnitude wide. I don't want to calculate ranges for every single character in BFDI, so I'll take an average of each range and use those numbers for the rest of the characters. On average, pencil is 3.99, 1.40, 4.88, or 0.71 meters tall, which makes the rest of the characters... So, obviously, all the results vary greatly, but other than the outliers, it seems that the characters are all within a few feet of regular human height, and certainly not the size of their actual object counterparts. Getting a final definitive answer is a bit tricky since a lot of these numbers are more trustworthy than others, and it's a bit unfair when a single method of calculation gives like 80 different numbers, so a regular average is probably not fair. A weighted average would be better, but there would be disagreement on which numbers should be weighted more and by how much, so I'll just make no one happy and regular average these numbers. The characters are this tall on average. That 29,000 meters really skews the results. Anyways, these results are final and inarguable. Update the Wikia now, bye!